No tears.
No series finale drama.
I'm Brian Derrick.
And I'm Glennis Mahar.
And this is Vibes Only, the podcast that has checked the vibes of American politics each week this year.
And this week, we're going to look back and check the vibes of the roller coaster ride that was this truly unprecedented election year.
Then we'll leave you with our final good vibe, goodbye. Let's get into it.
Brian.
Glennis.
I have to ask, are you holding space?
I'm not holding space yet.
You haven't seen Wicked yet?
Still haven't seen it.
I mean, I'm not gay, so I can't say I'm going to revoke your gay card, but...
I'll go this week. I mean, you have to plan weeks in advance if you want to see it.
I lucked out. I didn't realize I went opening day.
That's wild.
At noon. Like, I was like, oh, I'm going to go see a movie. Oh, Wicked's around. Let me go see that. And now it's my entire personality. So... How are you? Happy Thanksgiving week.
Happy Thanksgiving week. It's the last episode of Vibes Only.
Season finale? Question mark. We heard your messages. I just want to say right off the bat, thank you so much to every single person who emailed, sent voice messages, my favorite, telling us what the pod has meant to you this past year and what you hope to see from it moving forward if we continue. So genuinely from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking the time to give us those messages.
Yeah, it was by far the most we've ever heard from the audience. There were really thoughtful and incredible notes sent in about what the pod has meant to people and why it's been a helpful tool this year. So yeah, Glennis and I read every single one, and we are deeply grateful for this community and hope to be back in some iteration in the future, but TBD when and what that looks like.
Let's start. I mean, the waking up this morning to the 25% tariffs from Mexico and Canada, I was like, I love tequila. Am I in trouble?
Yes, exactly. Your margaritas are going up.
Way up. All right. Let's talk about this year. Let's kind of talk about some things that stood out to us. I just feel like things move so fast in this news cycle, even though it did seem at times that we were walking through mud with this news cycle and election cycle. It did really fly by, and there are a lot of things that happened, and we're going to talk about some of them.
We are living through unprecedented times.
Mm.
And it feels like it when you look back through headlines. I went back through my own Instagram of the news stories that I've covered and commented on, and it's wild how much we've already forgotten, like of major big game-changing news that at the time was like tectonic shifts, historic events, that now it's like, wait, what? When? That was this year? Like it's crazy.
Hit me. Give me some of them.
Okay, I feel like all that anybody was talking about at the beginning of the year was no labels.
Oh my God. We were so anti.
Totally. It was the first year that a third party was going to have a candidate on the ballot in every state and be really well funded. And we were so stressed about what impact that would have. Ultimately, it did play a role, right? Like RFK's endorsement of Trump did play a role. But no labels hasn't been in the news for months.
No labels who? See ya.
I mean, the Supreme Court decision after the Colorado 14th Amendment decision that said that Trump would appear on every ballot, right? The Supreme Court coming to Trump's rescue was huge news at the time that didn't even get the time of day come election season.
And that was January 5th, Brian. That was freshly into the year. You know what also happened in January? Trump said in January that he had already chosen his running mate, but he was going to be coy and not tell anyone, to only say later that he actually had a confirmed shortlist to then ultimately choose JD Vance in July. So in January, we were thinking, oh, he's already gotten his running mate chosen. No, full of shit.
It was evident from the way that the Republican primary was going that it was going to be Trump, but we still had other candidates at the start of the year, right? So Ron DeSantis was still in, Nikki Haley was in for months into this year, and that also feels like a lifetime ago.
February, do you recall the Robert Hur report? Pretty damaging to Joe Biden.
Yeah, in retrospect, we could say that that was a key stepping stone on his way to exiting the presidential race. At the time, I probably would not have I definitely would not have described it that way. But yeah, I think that it did set the stage for his eventual exit. Lots of these moments chipped away at people's confidence And then ultimately it was the debate that pushed it over the edge. But
Pushed, I would say, hurdled us off the edge of a cliff like Midsommar.
and it was pretty shortly after that that we got probably the most iconic State of the Union rebuttal of all time
Oh my god.
from Katie Britt, the senator from Alabama that was spoofed on SNL by Scarlett Johansson.
It was Stepford Wives on Valium and, like, a tranquilizer. Like, that thing was unhinged.
It was wild. It does feel like there were these moments that at the time felt like a huge swing in one direction or the other, right? So I'm thinking about that State of the Union felt like, wow, the GOP is so far to the right. They're so out of step with everyone. And then you have other moments like the Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, which resulted in liberals all over America saying, "It's over. It's done. He won. We lost." And then, like, just these massive swings that felt like the race had been, quote unquote, like, decided like 10 times, 10 different ways, none of which ended up being true, of course.
All of April was like that was Law& and Order Donald Trump SVU. Because in April, we had the trial for New York v. Donald Trump, and then the trial of Trump v. United States. May was a big month only because that was I remember being sat on my couch when the counts were being read and Donald Trump was guilty 34 felony counts in New York.
That was a big moment.
Did it matter?
If we're thinking of all the ways that this year made history, I think that that is one of the top ones that will be remembered, of course, is that this was the first time a former president had been convicted of crimes and also the first time we elected someone convicted of felonies. Not the kind of history we want to be making,
Historical.
for sure.
Cut to end of June.
Yeah, in many ways, the cycle started in earnest in June,
Yeah.
at the end of June, with the debate between Biden and Trump, which was certainly the most important moment of the last 4 years politically. It was very unusual to have a debate so early in the cycle, which is easy to forget at this point. But normally that wouldn't have happened until the fall. But we had this very unusual moment of an early debate and then a debate that really mattered. We love to say debates don't actually move the needle, but
This one changed the course of history.
yeah, this was the most important presidential debate in the history of the country. That just turned everything up to like a 15 out of 10.
Oof. That was an intense time. It was an intense time to be online because there was a lot of energy. I mean, you came out very quickly and said, "Thank you for your service."
That was the most hate I've ever received online for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew going into it that that would be the case, but yeah, I think that most people agree that Biden's decision was the right one at this point. Probably not everybody, but yeah, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I think that Harris had absolutely a better path to victory than he did. And even though she lost, I still think that it was closer because it was her instead of him.
Yeah, I agree. There isn't even really that much dialogue about, like, would we have won if it was
Yeah, I mean, that sprint from the debate to really the end of July when the transition happened to Harris was 3 weeks of nonstop breaking news that felt like things couldn't escalate any further, right? There was Biden saying that he was going to stay in. There was this drip, drip, drip of people sort of jumping ship. We had things like the George Clooney op ed. We had a steady flow of members of Congress coming out. We had
lots of white papers and op-eds coming out?
yeah, right. The data drops, all of these things that were constantly making news. And then Trump was having his own telenovela at the same time with the Supreme Court came out and gave this insane ruling saying that he would be immune from anything he did while president. That was the case if people remember that Trump's lawyers were arguing that the president could order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political opponent and still not be charged.
Wait, is that true now that he's president-elect?
Because it is such a major decision, I think the most misunderstood Supreme Court ruling we've seen in recent memory, where a lot of people think that this means that a president can, quote unquote, do whatever they want.
Right.
It doesn't give the president new powers, right? Because I've seen people posting sort of like meme-esque content with lists of things that Biden should do because of this ruling. What it actually says is that the president is, as you said, immune from criminal prosecution for things, but anything that the president couldn't do before because of the constraints of the power of the office, those still exist now. But it shields someone who wants to be a criminal in chief, which is why this is like the most relevant for Trump because he's
He's already a criminal.
but yeah, unfortunately it doesn't give Biden permission or the ability to like overrule the Supreme Court and forgive all student loans or like whatever people are saying he should.
Right, right.
And then shortly after that, we have the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, which also just felt like the defining moment of the entire election. And some people might argue that it was. It was the thing that brought a lot of Republicans over to his side and off the bench who had been holdouts. It's the thing that brought Elon Musk into the fold. Although I think you could argue that he was planning that the whole time because he was already spending money for Trump by that point.
And, like, manipulating his platform that he owns to support conservative messaging.
Yeah, it certainly had a galvanizing effect, and I think just made it humanized Trump for a lot of people and maybe neutralized the extremism argument a bit because the right incorrectly but effectively used the assassination attempt to claim that the left was like raising the temperature too high. That saying that Trump was a threat to democracy resulted in him being the assassination attempt, though there's zero evidence of that whatsoever. But I do think that it was an important, lasting event for the right more so than the left.
Well, and also in part he went right into the RNC where he had that, like, massive bandage on his ear, which was kinda like, do you need that?" He announced JD Vance as his running mate, and we were all like, "LOL." And then July 21st, that's when Joe Biden was like, "Actually, I'm gonna withdraw from the race," and then, endorse his vice president, Kamala Harris. I mean, there was just like another one, another one, another one, like hit after hit of things to like move the energy and the national conversation to, especially on the left. No one really wanted to talk about the assassination attempt.
No, definitely not. And those that did had very specific opinions about it and what happened. I would also point to this month, if we're just being honest and self-critical,
Yes.
as the acceleration of a lot of conspiratorial thinking on the left that has happened over the course of this year. I've not seen so much. I don't know if I want to say coordinated, but definitely widespread belief in borderline conspiracy theories left of center as I have this year. And that includes the assassination attempt was staged. That includes that he wasn't actually shot. Everyone said it was like the glass teleprompter thing had been hit and that it was glass that hit his ear. That then evolved into other things that we can talk about as we get closer to the election, but it's a concern for sure. And I think an underrated trend that we saw throughout the year as our media ecosystems become more and more and more siloed is that you are by definition opening yourself up to confirmation bias.
Totally. And it's not only that, but it's rife with misinformation and disinformation. The amount of people who became like ballistic or like gunshot experts in a mere hours after the shooting, it's just like one infographic does not a expert make. So that only fuels, I think, the conspiratorial thinking or like the anchoring in something that is not factual because the digital media ecosystem, it's very difficult to fact check or make sure that you're sourced correctly or properly. So,
Yeah, and the pace as we're covering, right? There's the sheer number of major events that happen in the course of a year or a month or sometimes a week also make it really difficult to consolidate around a single truth or really dig into misinformation and have the focus and time and energy to use facts to dispel it for a large portion of the audience that consumed it. And when you're just making snap judgments scrolling on feeds, and that's how you receive information, it's so much harder to dislodge something that has settled in your brain as truth. And I think that I don't know if they're our listeners or not, but I do think a lot of Dems, not a majority, but I think that a lot of people would still say, "Oh yeah, I do think that that assassination attempt was staged," or just like, "Oh, there was something fishy about."
Sus. Yeah. No comment. Okay, let's get into August. August was a busy month. We officially had Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as our ticket. We had a great time, high vibe time at the DNC. I was personally responsible for spreading Beyonce and Taylor Swift rumors at the DNC. That is something that I have to, it's my cross to bear.
A lot of our friends were.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't post anything about it, but I believed.
I didn't post. I was doing relational organizing. I said that Beyoncé sound checked at an offsite location, 2 songs, and I was telling everyone what the 2 songs were, and then I told someone that Taylor Swift's plane landed at O'Hare.
I did hear that.
That was probably originated from
Yeah,
me.
maybe from you. Oh my gosh. The DNC was wild. It was an incredible experience. I wish that more people got to go. I look at it in a different light now, a little bit, but I'm still really proud of like what the party put out in 3 weeks after Harris had announced her candidacy and been endorsed by basically everyone in the party. Being able to put that together in that amount of time is wild.
Yeah, from a production perspective, it was a tremendous achievement. Do I wish that they had taken the time and put an uncommitted representative on the stage? I do.
Yeah, and that's another we don't I don't think have, like, a exact moment to point to, but one of the things that just was churning in the background for the entire year was Israel and Gaza, right? Like, was always part of the conversation and felt like it pushed things in divergent directions for different parts of the party and the country, but if there was a moment that felt like it was the one to break through, that might have been it.
Yeah.
Shortly after the DNC momentum, that we were sort of coming off with a high vibe, then we had the RFK announcement that he was gonna endorse Trump. That was shortly after the leaked phone call, and people who were shocked by the HHS nomination for RFK can literally look back to this month in August and say, "There was a phone call, and RFK made a demand, Trump made a trade, RFK made the endorsement. There you go."
September. So now we're getting closer. September, we had former Vice President Dick Cheney and former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. They endorsed Harris.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discourse about this.
Yeah, I feel like most of the analysis that we've seen come since the election has been noise, not signal. And I think I would consider that part of it. People are just using the uncertainty and emotional state of the left to push their own agendas. And so if you're really progressive, you are pushing an agenda that the Cheney involvement is why Kamala lost and that she shouldn't have tried to court like middle of the road voters. And if you're in the center, then you're pointing to like Harris's like long history as like a super progressive and the uncommitted movement as being like reasons for the loss. And so I don't really buy into most of it, to be honest. And I think history tells us that most of the analysis immediately post election ends up being wrong,
Totally.
as do the predictions about like, this is what the party needs to do next, is rarely the direction that it goes.
I was talking to someone this past week, and I'm a little frustrated with the amount of people who have all the answers right now when I don't even think as a party we're even asking the right questions yet. And I said to this person, if someone's telling you that they know 100% why we lost, they are full of shit and they are lying to your face.
100%. Anyone trying to explain away 75 million votes is not someone you should trust for political assessment, right?
It's for a strategy role. Yeah.
The election came down to 120,000. votes. And if you're not speaking directly to those gaps, like those deficits, then I think that you're out of your depth potentially.
We had the much anticipated Trump-Harris debate on September 10th.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite moments of the cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of glossed over, but just Brat Summer as a whole being the confluence of several of my interests and just the most directly pop culture and entertainment has ever impacted a presidential cycle, I think. Yeah, the debate was up there for sure. Which do you think was more viral? The dogs and cats comment from the debate or the Puerto Rico comment from Madison Square Garden?
Puerto Rico.
You think so?
I think Puerto Rico okay, so if you look at the actual, like, digital footprint, so the virality, like, the dogs and the cats had a very, viral TikTok sound that came from it, and I will also look at, like, the scope of, like, the election, and ultimately, the dogs and cats, I think, was more harmful to the citizens of Springfield, and that some people might have just assumed that it was true. I think Puerto Rico was more viral because of the media that came out of that, like, technically more viral. That Bad Bunny video, who knows if that was meant to be released regardless of the insanely racist comment. But I do think the Puerto Rico moment was more viral and that it produced more media and probably ultimately had more engagement. You? Question mark.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I immediately think back to when we had Alana Glazer on the pod. She is very vocal about a valid argument that giving Trump sort of any airtime is not helpful to the cause. The dogs and cats thing went so viral because it was funny. You know what I mean? Like it was so outrageous that it was funny.
That's the danger though,
Yeah, exactly.
because he does that every single day. How many conversations have you had with someone in a closed door room or not saying, "Damn, I wish Donald Trump just decided to go into stand up instead of politics."
Right.
Things he says are objectively funny as a caricature of a human, but when you put that person in the most powerful position in the world, it is so dangerous because it glosses over his extremely hateful rhetoric. You know, we look at Morning Joe, people are really pissed, myself included still. And I do agree with your point. Mainstream media has to find a way to go toe to toe with Donald Trump and to make sure their audiences are thinking critically around what he's saying. But by them going to Mar-a-Lago and having a tete-a-tete with him, it's just like, oh, okay, well, are we forgetting all of those horrific things he said to you or about you for 4 years? I do think there's like an easily actionable lesson learned from the digital ecosystem over this last year, which is like, don't engage, even if it's funny to you or like objectively funny. It's not funny to the women who are losing access to reproductive health care. It's not going to be funny to the people who are stopped at, you know, checkpoints to check their immigration status. It's bigger than just like a quick laugh on the internet.
My takeaway is that I do think Dems need better ways to decide which things are five alarm fires and which are not. We have a tendency to escalate to alarm bells very quickly, and that's not going to work in Trump 2.0, where him treating the White House like QVC and giving jobs to people who pay him money through his businesses and other things are just going to be par for the course. It's going to be hard, but I think that we have to really figure out how to zero in on the things that aren't just outrageously corrupt, but also directly impact Americans around the country.
Right.
And those are not always the same thing. We know that he's going to degrade the quality of our democracy, but we have to choose which hills we're willing to die on. And it's going to be very difficult to do. So, with all of these things to remember over the course of a year, already have forgotten more than I thought was ever going to transpire.
It's okay. Your brain can only hold so much information.
It's true.
Don't be hard on yourself for forgetting that RFK Jr. had a brainworm.
Well, some things we intentionally block out, Glennis.
Yeah. Yeah. But, the human mind can only hold so much. So, that was helpful to recall the year.
Yeah, let's take a look back at 2024.
A montage?
Paula Roberts is the English psychic who is on set to give us a reading right now.
A tarot card reader on Fox News? What timeline are we in?
We'll say that is a great kind of moment to exemplify vibes only. Even Fox News, it's like, what are the vibes for 2024? It's
It
giving
is
vibes
it's
only.
giving vibes only. Lauren Boebert apparently attacked her ex-husband in like a public restaurant. We could talk all day about her long list of scandals and controversies. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
She's not scared of a public performance, we'll say that much. I was watching the Emmys, you were watching Iowa caucus stuff, and I said, I can't stay up that late. Text me when it's over. Cut to 31 minutes later, and it was over.
31 minutes. That's all it took for the Iowa caucus goers to say, burn it down.
What really chaps my ass is, dare I say, it should chap your ass.
It should. It's chapped.
Speaking of
Your chapped ass?
No,
We said we were never going to talk about George Santos, and here we are. But this is funny.
what a loser. Literally, what a loser.
Ugh.
I think that's like the best
Okay,
insult
loser.
now. Like, you're a loser.
Yeah. Period.
Period. Period.
Say that.
Period.
Period.
Period. Laura Trump came out with a single. Have you heard this?
I've had my ups and downs.
The vibes are snow day mixed with no homework for the rest of the semester, mixed with we're going to Disneyland surprise reveal.
Baby, call me the New York Times.
Yeah. Call me Us Weekly. I low-key love her. I love any old lady in a wig. That's gonna be me one day.
That is going to be you. And on Fox News, too. I see that.
God
for you.
willing. God willing.
There was a darkness.
Oh my
music.
God.
The music choice.
The tarot card reader.
Iconic. Thank you, Devin, our wonderful, amazing producer who has taken such good care of us over this last year. It is not easy to produce a podcast. So thank you, Devin. Thank you for that. I honestly felt that it was going to be Sarah McLachlan.
Manifested. Yeah, it was such a wild year, but it really helped to have this consistent conversation.
Totally.
Obviously, you and I talk outside of this too, but this was an awesome space to be able to unpack the high times and the low times with some levity and also some factual information about what is happening in the country. And I thank you, Glennis,
Thank you, Brian.
for showing up with all of your insightful thoughts and teaching me oftentimes about what the Gen Zers are talking about and trending on the TikToks and things. And of course, to the whole team at Courier, and Devin in particular has been such a rock star and made this pod what it is. So grateful.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. You know, I love you. I adore you. I think that you are one of the best follows on social media. You speak to the electoral stakes in a way that is very tangible. And as we go into 2025, there will be races that will matter, and Brian Derrick will tell you about them. That's been a lot of fun. TBD, there may be more ass chapping in 2025. So
There will definitely be ass chapping. There will hopefully be a pod where we are talking about it.
yeah.
Please do make sure you follow both Glennis and myself and Courier on social media so that you can stay tuned for updates about this pod or any others. And thank you to everyone who listened throughout the entire year.